2:47 a.m., you received a message from your gym buddy Garrett, who resides 4 houses away. Typically, he doesn't text at this hour unless there's an emergency. Your heart pounded as you considered opening the Ring app. The grainy night vision video showed Blake Hastings, your neighbor of 3 months, standing on your driveway at 2:30 a.m., gazing at your bedroom window for 4 minutes before retreating to his house. You recall him as a friendly face, a mid-30s man with a clean cut, employed in corporate consulting. He had cordially introduced himself upon moving in with a firm handshake and a 6-pack of craft beer, discussing lawn care and waste disposal schedules. However, this unexpected late-night visit raised questions about his true intentions. Daily routines of suburban life, yet over the past month I had felt an odd creeping sensation down my spine whenever I encountered him. Insignificant discrepancies that didn't quite fit. His frequent presence outside when I left for work, his knowledge about my divorce before I disclosed it, and his inquiry about Corinne, my ex-wife, during our second discussion, even though I had only referred to her as my ex. I attributed it to paranoia. The divorce had been painful, finalized 18 months ago after discovering Corinne's year-long affair. She took half of our savings and moved to another town with her sister. I kept the house, a point I fought for in the settlement, and spent a year rebuilding my life in the same neighborhood where we intended to raise children. Now, as I watched the footage of Blake standing in my driveway at midnight, every dismissed feeling resurfaced intensely. Spent the rest of that night scrutinizing surveillance footage from my Ring camera over the past 3 months. What I uncovered left me nauseous. Blake hadn't been fortuitously outside. He had been monitoring, following my routines. I identified 17 occasions where he appeared within a minute after my departure from home. 9 times he was spotted passing by my living room window between 10 p.m. and midnight, hours I typically spent watching TV. At exactly 6:00 a.m., I phoned Leonard Ashford, the only person who'd stood by me through the divorce. Known for his ruthlessness in court, a lawyer who navigated every loophole and leveraged every advantage, Leonard had cautioned me about Corinne's actions during the divorce. He'd warned that her lies, hidden assets she attempted to transfer, and fabricated claims for a better settlement suggested someone intent on causing further harm. "Meet me at the office at 8:00 a.m., Leonard instructed after I detailed the situation. Assemble all footage available by 7:45 a.m., I had accumulated a folder containing over 40 video clips. Leonard's office bore the scent of leather and aged law books, a place where significant issues were resolved by dedicated individuals. He watched the clips without uttering a word, his countenance growing grim with each segment. "This isn't haphazard," Leonard stated, focusing on a frame of Blake examining his wristwatch before passing my window. "This is surveillance, expertly conducted monitoring. Who is this individual?" Blake Hastings. "That's the name on his mailbox," Leonard tapped on his laptop. "Let me have half an hour." As he worked, I remained seated in the leather chair opposite his desk, my thoughts whirling with potential scenarios. Was Corinne sending someone to observe me concerning the settlement? She had been enraged when the judge ruled in my favor regarding the house, labeling me vindictive for not simply selling it and dividing the earnings. Yet, hiring someone to tail me seemed excessive, even for her petty nature. "Your neighbor isn't Blake Hastings. Instead, his real name is Troy Vance, who bought the property under the LLC of Corinne L. Vance, your ex-wife. Shockingly, she purchased this house 3 months ago and has moved her boyfriend, Troy Vance, into it. I was already seated when you shared this information, but upon hearing this, I felt the room spin. As I speculated, it seems that Corinne had remarried and changed back to her maiden name, Vance. However, this man isn't her new husband. He's likely the one she left you for in an affair." Leonard acknowledged my assumption with a nod. The neighbor who wrecked my marriage had been living next door for 3 months, monitoring my activities under a false identity, presenting himself as a cordial stranger named Blake. "Why?" I queried, my voice choked with disbelief. "Why would they do this?" Leonard showed me additional records. "Since your divorce, your ex-wife has remained bitter about the settlement. From property records, it appears she sold most of her assets to buy that house. Its value surpasses what she received in the divorce. Given its high maintenance costs, one might call it a psychological operation aimed at forcing me out," I concluded. "She covets the house," Leonard added. "Not just the house, but also the financial stability it represents, which you will gain in 4 months when you're eligible to refinance your mortgage, significantly reducing your payment and securing its long-term ownership. If she manages to force you to sell prematurely by harassing or making you feel so uneasy that you can't continue, she might present a lower-than-market value cash offer through another LLC and seize the property. This is exactly the kind of cunning, calculated, and illegal scheme Karen would devise. "What should we do?" I inquired. Leonard smiled, not a friendly smile, but the predatory grin of a lawyer who sensed an opportunity. "We need to document everything. You should install additional cameras with audio recording where it is legally allowed. Keep a detailed log of every interaction, any coincidence, and each instance this person is near your property. And don't let him know you've caught on. I suggest continuing to pretend." In Pennsylvania, recording private conversations requires consent from all parties involved, except for events occurring on your property or in public spaces. Your doorbell footage and home security cameras are admissible. If Troy continues his behavior, as he likely will because he assumes you're unaware, we can amass enough evidence to apply for a restraining order, sue for harassment, and potentially pursue criminal stalking charges. As for Karen, if we can prove she orchestrated this scheme, she may face charges for conspiracy to commit harassment, fraud related to property purchase under false pretenses, and possible breaches of the divorce decree if she uses joint information from the marriage to facilitate stalking. At the very least, she will encounter civil penalties. At most, criminal charges could be filed against her. After leaving Leonard's office, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced since uncovering the affair. For the past 18 months, I had been subjected to Karen's manipulations. At long last, an opportunity presented itself for me to reverse the situation. That afternoon, 4 additional security cameras were installed, 2 at the property line shared with Troy's house, 1 facing the street, and 1 covering my backyard. Additionally, a dashcam was installed in my car that activated upon motion. Every encounter would now be recorded. For 6 weeks thereafter, I assumed the role of an unaware neighbor. Upon seeing Troy outside while I mowed the lawn, I waved and exchanged weather-related banter. At the grocery store, our frequent meetings prompted chats about meal planning. When Troy knocked on my door asking to borrow a ladder, I extended it with a smile while recording the event. My notes accumulated into a damning sequence of events starting from September 14. Troy was seen outside his house within 90 seconds of me arriving home from work for 6 consecutive days, up until September 19. On September 23rd, Troy casually brings up my gym routine, which I hadn't disclosed to him. Later, on the 28th, he inquires about my dating status, particularly if I have a serious partner. I reply negatively, and he seems delighted. On October 3rd, his bedroom light switches on at 2:15 a.m., followed by him stepping onto his porch to check the mail just 3 minutes after my bathroom light turns off, indicating that he's watching my house at night. On October 3rd, Troy also mentions my work in architectural design, a fact I hadn't revealed. When asked how he knows this detail, he stumbles and says it might have been on LinkedIn. On October 15th, I choose to work remotely from a local coffee shop, deviating from my usual routine, and Troy unexpectedly appears there. He acts surprised to see me. On the 15th of October, he also inquires about my conversations with Karen, mentioning that she mentioned I've been reluctant. We don't communicate regularly. That was the error I'd been anticipating. Upon Troy verifying his direct contact with my former spouse, any doubt that their proximity was accidental vanished. I promptly contacted Leonard. He acknowledged knowing Karen, giving us leverage. In 2 days, Leonard filed a comprehensive legal suit intended to dismantle their scheme. The documents encompassed: 1. A petition for a restraining order against Troy Vance, charging him with stalking and harassment, substantiated by 87 videos, 34 detailed logs, and testimonies from 3 other neighbors who witnessed his peculiar conduct. 2. A civil lawsuit against Karen for conspiring to commit harassment, fraud, and violations of our divorce agreement. 3. A criminal complaint submitted to the county district attorney's office, requesting an investigation into stalking, intimidation, and property fraud allegations. 4. A motion to impose a lien on the neighboring property until the resolution of the fraud claims. The sheriff served Troy at 7:03 a.m. on October 18. From my living room window, I saw him exit in a bathrobe, grab papers, and pale dramatically. 20 minutes later, Karen's car squealed into his driveway, a moment I had been anticipating. The property line camera equipped with audio couldn't capture their indoor conversation, but it could pick up any dialogue on the public easement. Their argument was intense. You claimed he didn't suspect anything. Karen's voice was tense and terrified. You believed him to be oblivious. Yet I can't fathom how. 87 videos, Troy, that's how many videos of you stalking him he had. What on earth were you thinking? You told me to watch him. You instructed me to monitor his schedule so we could plan accordingly. Every word was clearly audible in the recording. Corrine admitted to masterminding the covert monitoring on my premises, caught on my own security system. Legal actions progressed quicker than anticipated. Troy received a temporary injunction mandating him to maintain a 500-foot distance from me and my property, making it illegal for him to reside in the neighboring house. Within a week, the house was vacant, a for sale sign erected by frantic Corrine aiming to recover her investment. Corrine's lawyer attempted to broker a deal, proposing to abandon the property sale and accept long-term distance conditions if I withdrew the criminal charge. Leonard's reaction was precise. Your client engaged in fraud, conspiracy, and stalking. She will face repercussions for each offense. The preliminary hearing was set for November 4th. By then, Leonard had prepared a compelling case, one that was akin to prose from a prosecutor. Evidence consisting of security footage, audio recordings, financial documents, neighbor testimonies, cell phone records showing numerous texts between Corrine and Troy, as well as Troy's own social media posts with geotags near your house, were presented in court. The chamber was smaller than anticipated, wooden-paneled and fluorescently lit, carrying a faint scent of old carpets and legal documents. Corrine sat 3 rows behind Troy's defense table, her face alternating between anger and fear. Troy appeared to have aged significantly over the past 3 weeks. Judge Marian Westfield was known for handling harassment cases diligently. She scrutinized Leonard's compilation of evidence silently, her countenance becoming increasingly stern. Mr. Judge Westfield addressed Troy's attorney. You acknowledge that stalking in Pennsylvania is a first-degree misdemeanor, with a possible sentence of up to 5 years imprisonment. The young, anxious lawyer stood and replied, My client insists he was merely being a neighborly acquaintance. However, Judge Westfield intervened. I've analyzed 87 video clips that demonstrate your client's persistent monitoring of the plaintiff's property. I've listened to audio recordings in which Ms. Vance discusses their concerted efforts to observe and intimidate the plaintiff. I've examined cell phone records indicating over 300 interactions between your client and Ms. Vance within the relevant timeframe. Does your client persist with this friendly neighbor argument? The attorney resumed her seat, and Judge Westfield turned to Corrine. You, Miss Vance, have been found to have illegally acquired property by deceitful means and manipulation, employing a fake identity for your partner as a tenant, intending to spy on your former spouse with the aim of forcing him off his legally owned land at a lower price. Is this just correct? 847 Maple Ridge Road's property is being placed under judicial oversight, pending settlement of alleged fraud allegations. If Ms. Vance intends to sell the property, the profits will be kept in escrow until the civil lawsuit is settled. The judge declared this an exceptionally concerning instance of post-divorce intimidation. The court disapproves of organized attempts at harassment. Mr. Dalton was offered a court apology for his ordeal. Troy stood up, his face red. Your Honor, he began, I was merely, you are following a man on behalf of his vindictive ex-wife. You will remain silent unless directly addressed by your attorney or this court. The hearing concluded with the judge advising the district attorney to seek maximum penalties. Troy may face up to 5 years for stalking, 3 years for conspiracy to commit fraud, and further civil penalties. In the courtroom, Leonard expressed his belief that Corrine might be offered another settlement due to her criminal charges and divorce decree violations, potentially leading to full financial disclosure and a possible reversal of the existing agreement. Troy is considering pleading guilty to lessen the charges and serve minimal time, but he will retain a permanent record, Leonard added. In this hypothetical settlement, Corrine would be required to pay significant damages amounting to 6 figures for emotional distress, legal expenses, and property devaluation. Furthermore, she would sell the adjacent house at market price, with a portion of the earnings allocated as additional damages to you. Both parties would sign binding agreements to never contact or research you, maintain a distance of half a mile from you throughout their lives. If an agreement is not reached, a trial ensues, putting both individuals at risk for substantial prison time. All information related to their case, including text messages, surveillance footage, and details of their scheme, would be made public as evidence and accessible to the media, causing them to settle, Leonard smirked. 2 weeks later, I was in Leonard's office reviewing the final settlement agreement. Troy Vance admitted guilt for stalking in the 3rd degree, served 18 months of probation, and acquired a permanent criminal record that ruined his corporate consulting career. Corinne paid $240,000 in damages, nearly 3 times what she spent on the house next door. The property was sold to a different owner, with $90,000 from the sale going directly to me as extra compensation. Both of them were bound by restraining orders that didn't expire. They requested I agree to a confidentiality agreement, but Leonard informed me I was free to share this story with anyone I chose. I sealed the settlement papers with a pen Leonard had presented to me, an antique Mont Blanc he claimed was reserved for symbolizing victory signings. The subsequent events were less tumultuous than anticipated. The neighboring house was purchased by a retired couple in December who generally preferred solitude. The $330,000 from the settlement, $240,000 in damages, and my share of the property sale permitted me to completely settle my mortgage and invest the surplus. As far as I know, Corinne is residing with her sister once more, financially strapped and unemployable after news of the scam spread. It appears that Troy, through his professional connections, returned to his original location. I am unaware of where he currently resides, but what matters is this: for 18 months following my divorce, it seemed as if I had lost everything: my marriage, trust, feeling of safety, and my very home. Corinne had taken much from me, and I spent all that time questioning whether I would ever regain a sense of wholeness again. Then she grew too greedy. She couldn't stop at what was enough. She needed to seize the sole item I'd battled tirelessly to hold onto, the house, symbolizing my defiance against her complete domination. It was this action that revealed her greed. And this time, I was prepared. I continue to reside in the same mortgage-free dwelling within the community where I aspire to nurture children. Occasionally, I enjoy coffee on the front porch and greet my neighbors, the genuine ones, those who don't monitor or compile reports on my daily life. The Ring doorbell remains intact. The extra cameras persist as well, not out of paranoia, but because I learned a valuable lesson: documentation wields power, evidence is justice. Sometimes, the most potent revenge involves an intense, systematic, legally watertight demolition of those who believed they could outwit you. Corinne aimed to evict me from my home. Instead, she suffered a loss of $250,000, earned herself a criminal record, and discovered that some triumphs are too costly to chase. I sleep peacefully now. The tingling along my backbone has vanished. Each dawn as I rise within the home I struggled to keep, I recall her attempt to seize all. Yet she lost entirely, though justice may not swiftly appear. When it fully emerges, the delay is justified.